guys, welcome to another episode on Andertons TV, and my guest today is Joanne Shaw Taylor, fresh back from Detroit.
I am indeed. I got back last week, so I'm just getting over the jet lag and settling into Christmas.
You look fine. There's absolutely no sign of that whatsoever.
I was going for that. I've overachieved.
Fishing for that one.
Yeah, I was aiming for looking like I was alive, so I've excelled myself.
Well, it's great to have you here. Obviously, we've been following your career for a while now, and you're reaching crazy levels of success now, touring with your band.
Yeah, it's going well. I honestly can't grumble.
No, it's good. And but as always with these kind of interviews, it's a kind of get to know you. So you are a Brummie girl. Kind of. It's a bit sensitive, isn't it, that whole...
It's, to be honest, I don't know what to tell people, because I was born in the Black Country, lived there for 10 weeks, moved to Solihull, which, if I told people when I was growing up I was from Birmingham, they said I wasn't, and I was posh, and I was from Warwickshire. Went to the Black Country every weekend, and I've lived in Detroit since I was 20, so...
Oh, wow.
I will happily take Brummie or Black Country or
I didn't realize you lived in Detroit since you were 20. But you seem to have avoided any form of Detroit accent.
When I'm there, because as soon as I go back, my friends hate it in Detroit when I go back, or if I come to England, because they're like, we were just managing to understand you. And so I have to go back and say things like half and half and there and gas. And
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, look, so we need to talk about what it was that inspired you to pick up the guitar. And so let's go back to, I guess, was it the family that was very musical, or were there, did you just naturally hear some music one day and go, what's that? What was that moment?
It was a combination of the two, actually. My dad played guitar, but I think he'd taken a little break. He played guitar when he was younger and a teenager, and he played harmonica, big blues fan, and then got married, and me and my brother came along, and, a real job happened, and that went out the window. So my dad bought my brother a guitar, and I think it was at that point, it was the first time we'd had one in the house, and there was a bizarre feeling of I'd known it before, and I was obsessed with it, and far more than my brother was. So when it came my turn, I managed to convince Dad to let me have classical lessons at school as well. So I think my brother by then had got very bored with it. Okay. And I remember there being a sort of, my dad kind of having an epiphany of, well, the boy didn't want to do it, but the girl sort of thing.
Yeah, I see.
But did well at classical, but really that kind of gave me the encouragement I needed and confidence, I guess, to know I love playing guitar and I could do it. But yeah, the epiphany was about 12, 13, and Dad played me a Stevie Ray Vaughan video. And
that must be, because I certainly remember, my first, playing classical guitar at school, and I'm guessing much the same sort of kind of vibe, was the teachers would just get out green sleeves or, row, row, row your boat, whatever.
And it was just
like, how did you...
Twinkle, Twinkle was the first song.
Yeah, so...
Nailed it, by the way.
Oh, that's but was that... Were you kind of happy with that, or in the back of your mind was there still other guitar music you were thinking, I'm going to try and see if I can play some sort of blues thing on a classical guitar?
I think early on, because I was so young, I was 8, and just to put in context, I think the only CD I had was a Take That one, so that was kind of my musical education at that point. I think I was just so excited that I was doing it. Right. Certainly about 2-3 years in, and by then my brother was an older teenager and listening to Metallica and Tom Waits and all kinds of stuff, Morrissey, unfortunately. That I think, my ears had been open a bit more, and I realised there was other avenues in guitar to go down that would probably be less disciplined and more freedom and enjoyable than...
And so Stevie Ray Vaughan was the moment, was it? And
yeah, I know, particularly for the genre I'm in, Stevie was kind of a breakthrough artist, kind of a gateway artist for a lot of my generation to get into blues. I think particularly for me, because I had been playing classical and it was so disciplined, and it was very much, and I was in the Birmingham Guitar Ensemble at that point, it was very much read this piece of music and do not deviate off this. And then I saw this guy basically playing 6-minute solos of whatever he wanted and dressed like a cowboy, and it was just like, oh, that looks way more fun than what I've been doing.
And that was that, because at the time, obviously Stevie would have been dead for 10 years by the time you were even talking about
pretty much. What did 99? This would have been 97.
Yeah, so pretty, and what was it about, because you mentioned your brother listening to Metallica, and what was it about what Stevie was playing that, that somehow drew you in a way that perhaps other forms of guitar music didn't? I think certainly the blues for me, which it still is that kind of freedom of
just be yourself. Like, there's not really any rules as to how I play or a particular technique I should follow. And particularly then my second favourite guitar player was Albert Collins, which if you've seen him was... Nobody still plays like Albert. It was a bizarre technique that he'd obviously taught himself. So there was that element of it and that sort of freedom. I think particularly with Stevie, I always think he was such a perfect artist to introduce people to blues. Because, I mean, the guitar playing was lovely. It was fluid, it was well phrased, it was a beautiful tone. It was really, you know, warm and endearing. But then also he played kind of short, sweet pop songs. I mean, Pride and Joy, Love Struck Baby, they're 3.5 minute, really kind of jolly, catchy pop songs, sang with a really lovely voice. And he looked, you know... I mean, I know some people grumbled Stevie was not an attractive young man. I think he was. He was certainly very charismatic and, you know, had an image to him that was really kind of endeared you to him. So I think all those things combined, really.
I don't know if nowadays, does anybody get away with that look nowadays?
No, and someone asked me recently whether I was actually tempted as a kid to like put on the cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And I think being female and that little bit more savvy that teenage girls are than teenage boys, I knew it was a really bad idea to be in Solihull wearing cowboy boots.
So Stevie sounds like a bit of a sort of gateway drug into the music. So
yeah, I think so, definitely for me.
And did you, was that almost like, right, that's it, I'm going down all the secondhand record shops now and I'm just finding anything and everything?
Pretty much. I mean, I was kind of held back a little bit by living in Solihull, which I think we had an hour price, which I used to cycle to. And it would be a case of, hey, my dad says I should buy a B.B. King CD, and they'd say, oh, we can order you one in 6 weeks, you know, and then I'd learn that religiously. But yeah, my dad was very, you know, helpful in that. And, oh, if you like this, maybe let's listen to Gary Moore. Do you like Eric Clapton? Do you know? And kind of really helped open my education, because particularly then we didn't have the internet. So
yeah. So how, you know, growing up, I'm just trying to get, so you're mid-teens at this point, are you? Or sort of early teens still?
Yeah, 13, 14 was really kind of the...
Yeah. And were you immediately drawn to this idea of trying to get into a band, or were you more of a sort of, you know, bedroom player for, you know, at that time?
I think early on, you know, I think it was very much daydreaming of, okay, one day I'm going to be, you know, 25 and live in Austin, Texas and be just like Stevie. And I think that there were two changing points for me, which was one, discovering Johnny Lang and Kenny Wayne Shepherd when I was about 14. And they, at the time, would have been 16, 17. And they already had albums out and were touring. And so that kind of changed my mind as to, oh, actually, if, you know, you can do this as a young person, you don't have to be, you know, 30, which at the time I thought was ridiculously old. So that was a big influence on me. And then also my dad helped a lot, again, you know, because there wasn't anybody playing at school, but he did know some people at his work and kind of helped me get in touch with some musicians a little bit older than myself and kind of get the first band together and demo.
I mean, that was, I think, a lot of these, I think blues bands, you tend to find that you've got this sort of, you know, the emerging main person in the band, you know, the guitar player, singer. And they do end up in a band with like a lot of their like older people, don't they? And it's kind of, I sometimes sort of think, yeah, it's not an uncommon sight, is it, to see that? It's
not, and it's helpful, you know. I mean, it was a good education in that, working with, you know, good musicians, you know, 3-4 times my age then, that still would have been, you know, only 50 if that. I did have my brother in my first band for a while. He played bass, but he fell asleep at one of the rehearsals whilst playing. So Ben quickly was
It's a common
fired.
problem with most blues bass lines, I think, isn't it?
It's which I still run into now. Like, bass players do not want to play. It's like really a 9-minute shuffle. Like, pick a different instrument. It's not my fault that you play bass. But yeah, that was sort of time to. It's tough to fire your older brother or get fired by your little sister.
Was there a good blues scene around about that time where you were living?
For me, I was really lucky actually, because of my connections to the Black Country, having my whole family from there. Really, there was a club there called the Robin, which is now the Robin 2, but originally the Robin was over in Brierley Hill Way, and my dad would take me over there every weekend. And I mean, I'd see the Paladins, which were a kind of West Coast blues rockabilly band, John Hammond Jr., Eugene Hideaway Bridges, the Hoax, Ainsley Lister, so a lot of the young guys, Matt Schofield coming through. So at the time, I think that scene was actually probably stronger than it is now. But I live in America, so I'm not sure.
No, I mean, you're probably right, but there's some cool names there, some cool names. So what was the moment then, you know, that when you suddenly realised that I could do this for a living, you know, and were your family supportive of that, or were they all sort of, please go to university and
No,
get a proper job?
I got really lucky there in that they were very supportive. I think my mum was a bit nervous and would have liked me to go to college, get something under my belt. But also I had a few school teachers that were very supportive of, you know, take a year out, you know, if that's really what you want to do. I think for me there was no doubt in my mind, which is the beauty of youth as well, you know, until you've been knocked down, you don't know you can't do something. So I was just on this path and was hell-bent on doing it. I think later on, after I got had my first deal and that tanked and had to go back home, then it was like, oh, this isn't going to be as easy as I think.
I bet we've heard a few stories like that before as well, but we'll get to that. And did you always sing? Were you always, I'm going to be fronting this band? And
that was always my dream, just because everyone who I aspired to as a guitar player sang, you know, it's a very blues tradition to sing and play guitar, front the band. Didn't, in reality, had no singing voice whatsoever and did not want to do it.
Right.
But again, was just sort of coaxed into it by people in the band and friends, and just started singing like one song here and there, and nobody booed, so that was good. But looking back, there are some videos of me on YouTube, which, if you feel you want to Google them, it's very Solihull schoolgirl trying to sing a blues song. My voice got better, thank
I was
God.
going to say, has it always been quite a deep and husky voice, or is that something you've worked on?
Yeah, worked on it, and also just age, and I think it's just sort of, I found it. But it wasn't natural early on. I had to work a lot harder on that than other things. I think the guitar playing came a bit easier.
It's because it's interesting, isn't it, how I think, you know, the people that don't sing just assume that great singers just wake up and can sing, you know, whereas I think it's just as much of a trained part of your musicality as playing the guitar is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a muscle, you know, you've got to work it like anything else. And I'm sure there are singers that at 4 years old, you know, you hear the stories about people in church getting up and singing and they just had the voice, but no, I was not one of those people.
So we're now kind of, you're in a band, or even in multiple bands, was it, or just the?
Just the first incarnation of the Joanne Shaw Taylor band.
God, did it have a great name?
It was the Joanne Shaw Taylor band.
Oh, really? So you never had a terrible name, or fell out with people over the name of the band or anything?
Not that I can remember. Oh, I think the one with my brother. God, what was that called? I think it was the Matinee Idols or something really crap. Sorry, I think my dad named.
So that's not too bad. We've heard worse.
Yeah.
We've heard worse. What was my favourite one was the Jehovah's Witness Protection scheme. It was my favourite. It's sort of like bad choice of name, or maybe great choice of name. But anyway. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So right from the beginning, it was all about you had a vision. It was going to be you fronting a band, your name on the posters.
Yeah.
You writing the tunes, or is this all covers at that point?
I didn't. It was all covers pretty much. I think there was a couple of originals that were kind of standard slow blueses. I think they made it onto my first album, but again, that was something I worked on and fortunately got better, I think. But yeah.
Now, I half of me hates going down this route of questioning, but I'm just going to anyway, because I just sort of think
it's not live.
No, it's I think you've broken a bit of a mold. There weren't a lot of female guitar players, I don't think, particularly not fronting blues bands. There are more now, which is kind of cool, and that's why I hate going down the route of questioning, because I'm always of the opinion that if I ask the question, it sort of resurrects this cliche old boring thing. But I think given that it probably is more valid when you were cutting your teeth doing this.
I think to be honest, I mean, I don't mind talking about it because it is something I'm very passionate about. No, there weren't any female guitar players to, I always remember reading Guitar Magazine and there'd be like the top 100 guitar players. and they'd all be male, and it, you know, you can imagine the top
Bonnie
five.
Raitt would be like 87th or something.
Yeah,
That would
maybe
be
Bonnie
it,
Raitt
you
would be in it. And then they do like a special females one, and like Sheryl Crow would be number one, who I love Sheryl Crow and she's fantastic. But that's like saying Jimi Hendrix is number one.
Yeah.
And Sheryl Crow, there's a bit of a difference in style.
Oh, you're right, because Sheryl Crow and Joni Mitchell always get wheeled out as like the guitar idols for women.
Yeah.
You go, I mean, great songwriters, ludicrously talented, and they can obviously
Singers,
play guitar, but they're not trying to be the type of guitar player that you are.
Yeah, it would be kind of, I don't know what the male equivalent is, I guess having, I don't know, Bob Dylan as number one.
Exactly.
Which is great, huge influence, great guitar player, but it's not the same kind of...
Yeah.
So it's predominantly acoustic guitar players. I didn't think anything about it, really. Again, naivety of youth, it was just, I was always a bit of a tomboy, played soccer, and I just thought it was another thing that boys did that I could do. But particularly as I've gotten older, and there are a few more on the scene now, and, you know, we kind of stick together and, you know, become fast friends because it's, you know, a lifetime bond of, oh, you did the exact same thing I did, yay. You know, Sam Fish, Chantal McGregor, to name but a few, a good friend of mine, Laura Chavez on the West Coast. But no, I don't mind talking about it, and I like the fact I'm out there playing it, and I do hope it inspires, you know, little girls to pick up a guitar and realise that there's no reason they can't play guitar.
Yeah,
You know?
well, that's the positive message. I've got two daughters as well that I'm sort of hoping will grow up not feeling like it's going to be weird if they want to play the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason... I mean, again, I always get referred to as a female guitar player, which I always think is a bit odd because my name's Joanne, so it's not exactly, you know, it's kind of a giveaways in the title. The good for a girl thing, that's what kind of... And again, it's for my niece. I don't want her, who's 8 years old, to think that, you know, she can't do as well as it, so she's going to not play as hard or practice.
So in terms of just advice then, is it just do it? You know, don't...
I think so. I mean, for me, that's always been my approach, and it seems to have worked out, and I'm like that in anything, really. You know, I think to be good at anything, don't listen to doubt or self-doubt or from anyone else, you know. But yeah, crack on, have a go at it. Why not?
Oh, that's cool. All right, so look, at what point did you give up your job and decide to go and what were some of the worst jobs that you had to do?
I mean, I was quite lucky. Did this. I mean, I got my first record deal at 16 with Dave Stewart from Eurythmics.
Fair enough.
So I did 2 years with him in a band with him, and then when that record label went bust when I was about 18, 19, and that was the harsh reality of coming home, and friends were all at university and, you know, living by themselves, and I was back with mum and dad, had to get a bar job, which was a great job actually. I enjoyed working in a pub and then working on the weekends doing gigs. But I think that period of time, a couple of years there, really made me focus on, okay, I have to get back to this somehow. And
that was, I say, that there was never that sense of, oh, maybe I will just get that 9 to 5, or there was always everything.
There was nothing else I could do. You know, it was just the one thing for me because I didn't want to, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else, and also because I'm utterly useless at everything else. So, I mean, I had some jobs. You know, I worked in a guitar shop, bars, pubs. I was a hotel receptionist, which I was exceptionally bad at because I'm really crap on the phone. So, you know, lots of different little things that I did.
Talking of it's an interesting one, isn't it? Again, because you're really now, I think that the idea of looking for a record company to sort of, you know, to sign to as a breaking artist, and just assuming that they'll just do everything for you, and all you've got to do is turn up and strum some, you know, play some guitar.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's gone though, really, isn't it now? And unless I suppose you're going to be the next Taylor Swift or something like that.
Yeah, you know? I mean, I think for this genre that I'm in, or certainly guitar-based rock, blues genres, you know, the whole industry has changed a lot anyway. I mean, since my first deal, which was nearly 20 years ago now with Dave, with the creation of MySpace and the internet and social media, and, you know, it's just, yeah, the whole industry has changed. But, I mean, certainly being self-motivated and making as many connections as you can yourself. And that,
I suppose, so getting the first deal when you were 16, and I suppose there must have been almost that sense of like, I've made it. And then obviously it all comes crashing down, as so many bands, you know, will be feeling having had something familiar happen to them. What did you learn then about the next time? Did you look for another record label to pick you up again, or were you very much going, that's not the way to do this now, and I need to sort of be much more
Yeah, I think the big turning point for me around that time as well was Dave was really helpful and tried to help me get another deal. And there were a couple of offers from major labels, but one wanted me to be like an Avril Lavigne of the blues. One wanted me to be like Norah Jones of the blues, very Radio 2 and laid back, and you know, I'm like this aggressive Texas blues guitarist. So I think that really helped me make up my mind that actually blues is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to compromise on that. I just wanted to make my own music, which is when I approached an independent label, Roof, that had shown some interest. So that was kind of next, and that kind of kicked everything off, really, signing Roof.
And have you been with them ever since, have you?
I did my first 3 albums with Roof, and then we did a live album DVD, and then I did 2 independently on my own label, which is then I sold that to Sony, and I'm now on Sony.
Oh, cool.
So it's been a bit of a...
So, and I mean, even just those 2 things presumably shows that you've picked up a bit of business acumen along the way, and you've worked out...
A little bit, not as much as I need or would like, I think. Yeah, you have to, you know. There are so many horror stories in this business, and I've lived some of them. Whether that's bad management or the wrong lawyer or, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, we've all heard them, we've all read the books. And that's from someone in my position who didn't go down the other route that we talked about earlier, off tape of, you know, drink and drugs and the excessive lifestyles. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, as much help as you can get in educating yourself, in surrounding yourself with the right people, it really is. Yeah. You need to.
Well, that's cool. Well, that's good. I think that now as well for artists that are coming out, just be so much more savvy about, you know, things that you're signing and the people you're surrounding yourself by. And
yeah, I mean, it's a weird industry, you know, and there's good bits to it and there's bad bits, but it's also an industry that requires no degree or knowledge to be involved in, you know, and it does attract interesting characters because of the nature of it, and it's glamorous and it's entertainment. So yeah, it's kind of, you definitely need to be able to look out for yourself and just keep your wits about you. And
do you like the Joe Bonamassa school of kind of management? They're just like him and his manager, and that's it. They just do everything.
Yeah, and they've been, I'm very close to both Joe and Roy, and they've been very smart about everything. And it's made a success, really. You know, they kept all the money, they promoted their own shows, did everything themselves, kept their own album, which meant then they could put that money back in, which is, you know, he's shown it's a great way of doing it, particularly on this scene. Because, you know, when you've got a lawyer taking 10% gross, a manager taking 20% gross, a record company taking 15% gross, and that's before you've even paid your lighting guy, your monitor guy, your van, your bus driver, your band. It's like, oh, I lost 20 grand on this tour. It's, you know, and it happened. So, no, I think their model's very clever.
That's cool. Right, so let's talk about now some of the more recent, because you are, 6 albums in now, or is it more than that now? Or are you going to tell me it's like
6.
26
This was number
or something?
6.
This was 6, is it? It
6 with, it would be 7 with a live album, but 6 studio albums.
Oh, that's cool. And how do you feel, you know, stylistically, where have you seen yourself kind of evolve and change? And are you becoming, you talk to yourself about being an aggressive Texas blues guitar player. Do you think you become more aggressive the older you get, or less aggressive?
I think I've become more aggressive. I think I've become less Texas and less bluesy. I don't know. I mean, my whole thing from the get-go is that I just wanted to be as good as I could be, so I keep trying to improve, and that's all round guitar, singing, songwriting, which hopefully I'm sticking with that. I mean, it has lulls and like anything, you know, but I keep trying to push for that. And the other main thing was I just wanted to be true to myself in terms of I just wanted to, everyone always asks how I approach an album, and I just try and do what I'm feeling in that time and do the best job, and because I think that's the best way of creating something that's honest and therefore will resonate with people, as opposed to, you know, people ask, why don't you do more of a bluesy album on this or more pop stuff, and it's like, but then I'm trying to manufacture something that can suit something which is going to sound ingenuine, and I just don't think that's the way to go. So
I always think as a sort of a blues artist, it must be quite difficult now to come up with a song that doesn't feel like a, you know, rehashed version of someone else's song, because the genre's, you know, been around for as long as any other form of, you know, modern genre.
It is, and it's changed so much, and I think there's still two sides of people that wouldn't consider what I do blues,
right,
and people that do. I don't know where I sit on that. I love blues, and if you consider me blues, I'm happy with that, and if you don't, I'm happy with that as well. I think yeah, you're right. I mean, the problem for me is if you think of a traditional blues song, because it's such a, traditionally it's, 1-4-5.
Yeah.
There's so little you can do with the lyrics, so you've got to be so clever to get a hook. Like Willie Dixon was fantastic at that. A lot of those older guys. I was always crap at that, so that's kind of why I gravitated more towards soul music and rock as well, I think.
Just break away from the 1-4-5 kind of.
Yeah, you've got to be
shackles.
Yeah, and particularly at the time early on, you've also got to have a certain type of voice to really sell that, a certain tone, which I don't think I did early on. So I kind of, went to other heroes at the time, like John Mayer, we were talking about previously, and other kind of blues-based artists.
It's funny, isn't it? I think you're right about that whole, just because someone has a guitar, they're just lumped into blues, aren't they? It's almost like, could be anything, couldn't it, really? Yeah,
I mean, I've always approached it in that I do consider myself a blues guitarist because I come from that school, and I think I approach music in that way that I learned, very minor pentatonic and, again, the personality aspect. But I'm not I think I play kind of rock pop songs with a soul voice. It's kind of, and I'm fine with all of those genres and whatever. So.
And when you are writing, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a hook or a riff or something to then build everything on, or are you a sort of lyricist that sort of has a melody in your head going around and you try and find guitar parts?
Sometimes. It was interesting with this album. I've always written all the music first and then gone to the lyrics. Once you've got the melody and then pick a song title, you've kind of got half the puzzle there figured out. It was interesting, this album, it was a bit different. I started I'd come up with things in the shower and just sing like a line and then go, oh, that's actually, could be really cool. So it's kind of differing, but yeah, usually I would always music first and then lyrics.
And you said, so a typical year for you now then is your own tours, presumably lots of, the festival scene for a blues guitar. It's pretty good.
A lot of barbecue. And that's it.
And obviously you had an album that came out this year as well. So is the cycle typically to release the album, tour the album, or? Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, going back to our chat about the industry, I mean, that's the other thing in the genre is that, an album essentially is a promotional tool to kind of back the album, really. Back the tour, sorry. Promote the tour. So yeah, that's kind of the natural rhythm of things, how they've come about for me over the past 10 years of record, tour for 18 months, break for festival season in the middle. Whether that will start to slow down a bit, I think maybe an album every 2 years is sensible now.
Just because of the amount that an album kind of sucks out commercially. I mean, it's like you say, it's almost a free giveaway now, isn't it, to just get people to buy tickets to a gig or buy a T-shirt or something. Yeah, I mean, I try, obviously, I always make sure the album's as good album as I can do at the time, but it does kind of, steam around the touring. Also just getting older, because I write all my own songs, coming up with an album's worth of material every 12 months is, I'm not Bob Dylan, I'm not that not creative apparently, but so I think an album of original material every 2 years is what I'm aiming for, I think. And what's your favourite part of that cycle?
The break from touring.
They're doing nothing.
It is a funny cycle that you get into, in that, and it does work out well that way, because you go and tour for 18 months and by the end of it you're kind of sick of the people you're touring with, and they're probably sick of you as well, and you just want off the road and to be in one place.
Amount of time to tour. So they're really that long without any kind of a proper break.
We get breaks here and there. I like to do like 6 weeks on, a couple of weeks off, or 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Yeah. But it just depends really, particularly as we're in the States a lot, which is difficult to traverse.
If you got sort of similar levels of popularity, both Europe and the US, or are you bigger?
Probably bigger here. Though it depends. I mean, some years I tour there more and don't, give Europe a little break from me, and so therefore it starts to build there. So it's just kind of, and particularly after 15, 20 years of this, you kind of see, economic climates kind of dictate things as well, and it should be interesting next year.
So you've got your copy of the Financial Times out, working out which country would be a good one to tour in. And is there
time to hit Australia?
Yeah, I was about to say, whereabouts in the world would you you maybe not as big as you'd like to be, but would love to spend some more time? Probably
Oz. I was doing pretty good there for about 5 years, because it's such a difficult place to get to, and it was made easier by the fact that I'd moved to the States. So, you're only talking about a 14-hour flight direct from LA. We started going over doing the Bayfront Blues Festival, which you really kind of have to do to be able to tour there.
Yeah.
You know, you can piggyback some club shows, and I think I was going every year, if not twice a year, for about 5 years.
Cool.
And loved it. Just cool people, and they're so, you know, thankful that you go over because it's so far, so you're kind of on the good foot from the get-go. Plus, I watched a lot of Home and Away Neighbours when I was a kid, so it's, you know, it's like... Right.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's taking me back now. Home.
Harold
is that
Bishop.
is that still going?
I don't know.
Are any
I'm
of them
kind
still alive? I mean...
Well, Harold came back from the dead about 2 times while I was watching it. It was like, oh God, here we go with the amnesia storyline again.
I just remember Mrs. Mangle. Was she a character? Who was the guy that had the dog? That I think he became a comedian.
The dog came a comedian?
No, the guy came a... Oh, man. You see, the problem is I was probably watching Neighbours, so I'm a reasonable bit older than you are, but I'm trying to think... what was his name? Hey, whatever. Basically, we have to get back to guitar as the people watching this now, about half of them have switched off. Neighbours, I can't believe it. What we'll do is, when we finish, we'll have a proper Neighbours fest after this.
Fine. Pop quiz.
So, right now, they're taking us up to sort of 2019 and 2020. I see touring again next year. Is that the start of the touring for the last album?
Yeah, so we've got a little warm-up. We're going out with Joe Bonamassa on the Joe Bonamassa Keeping the Blues Alive at Sea Cruise. That's a long sentence. Did well.
Why don't they just call it the Blues Cruise? Or is that someone else?
There already is one.
Oh, so that's not his?
No. Joe's got his own boat.
He's got his own boat?
His own boat. It's great. You get loads of free toys and stuff, like Joe bobbleheads every morning.
That's mad, isn't it?
I could do without the tannoy announcements.
It does seem crazy. The guy that does our bass videos for us is the guitar player in Level 42.
Oh, no way. That's a good band.
Which is weird because he does our bass videos and he's the guitar player in Level 42. He's very talented.
Well, there's a good bass player in Level 42.
He does the prog cruise.
Yeah, there's loads
thing.
of them.
And it just seems there's like a metal cruise, a
Kid
prog...
Rock, Kiss, Melissa Etheridge. They've all got one. It's fantastic. As a muso, they're great. I mean, there's a 24-hour casino bar where musicians get free drinks. So we all hang out there. And that's actually really cool because then the fans come there at 2 in the morning because they know everyone's going to be there. And like the last one, it was me, Robert Randolph, and I think it was Marcus King, and Joe's at the table gambling away.
He's ridiculous, isn't he, Marcus King?
Oh, he's fantastic. Great kid too, really nice guy.
Yeah, we've not managed to have him on the show yet, but he's got another one of those just like liquid gold voices, hasn't he?
He doesn't even need to play guitar, and he's one of the greatest guitar players out there. And he's like 22.
He doesn't want to play the guitar, is that what you just
No, he
said?
doesn't need to.
Oh, he doesn't
With
need
that
to play
voice,
guitar,
again, it's just opens up and it's like honey and whiskey and all things.
It's just not fair. But anyway. Going back to you.
So rather depressed now.
Tour next year to promote the album. That kicks off in March.
It does indeed. We've got a month in the UK, start in Brighton.
I saw on your website as well that on the next tour, the one that starts in March, you are doing some meet and greets as well for VIP packages.
We are, which we haven't done for a little while, which I'm really excited about because it's such a different tour for us. You know, I'm playing the whole album in its entirety back to back. And I wanted it to be more intimate, so we decided to add on the VIP package so that
that's cool.
We get to meet some people.
Meet some people, they get to like a bit of a rig rundown and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they're going to come along for sound check and get to see me rolling off the tour bus in my PJs, doing the nonsense I have to do.
Oh, that's cool, man. So that's all exciting. And is that the same band you've used for a while, or?
It's the same keyboard player. I've kind of mixed up recently. I've decided to bring in a US band, because we've started touring there more heavily, which is players I've sort of worked with a bit throughout this year, 2019. So we got a fantastic new drummer, Stephanie Williams, is joining us, who recently has been with KG and the Girls. So if you've been to a Robin Trower show anytime soon, you'll have seen her playing drums. And then Steve Lee Hayne on the bass is joining us for this tour, who's been with me all summer. Who's a very great bass player, a dear friend of mine. He also engineered my Reckless Heart album.
Cool.
So, and then Bob Friedsma, who's been with me for a few years now on the keys. So,
awesome.
Kind of a mixture of old and new.
Well, that sounds cool. But now we are going to nerd out on the gear.
Yeah.
As finally we get to the bit of the show that everybody's kind of interested in. Now, you mentioned your very first guitar was a classical guitar. Can you remember what your first electric guitar was?
My first electric guitar was a Mexican Stratocaster Sunburst with Texas Special pickups in.
Very Stevie.
Which I've lost.
You've lost?
Well, I left it at Dave Stewart's office once, and I think his son has it, or had it, Samuel Stewart.
Shocking.
But Dave did gift me a Telecaster. It was actually used in the Sweet Dreams video, I think.
Nice.
So I was quite pleased with the trade-off.
That's not a bad swap.
Yeah, so that was the first guitar, and then the second guitar, the first proper guitar was, which is still my main guitar, is a 1966 Esquire.
Okay. Now I would say the first 3 or 4 pages on Google of pictures of you is all Tellys or Les Pauls. So
predominantly, yeah.
What's the deal there then? Is that what drew you to those 2 guitars?
Tellys was Albert Collins, and also I think in the early days, not wanting to look like another Stevie Ray Vaughan wannabe, even though I was a Stevie Ray Vaughan wannabe, I just switched to a Telly and tried to pretend I wasn't. And also now, I'm not very good at playing Strats. I find the most difficult guitar to play, if I'm honest. And I do think part of that is down to the fact that, you know, for the first few months of me really practicing, it was a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I learnt all those songs so badly with such bad technique because it was so early on.
Right.
That now when I play a Strat, I just revert back to playing like that. So I try and avoid it. But no, Tellys I love, that's my guitar. And then Les Pauls, to be honest, I equally love. You just, you know, you can't get those 2 tones out of any other guitar really, so.
Are there, when you're choosing a guitar to play on a song, is it a certain style? Of the heavier ones tend to be the Les Pauls, and the lighter's the wrong word, but you know what I mean, the sort of the less gainy ones. Are they the Telecaster or?
Predominantly. To be honest, a lot of times, which is a surprise to me, the producer usually picks that.
Right.
In terms of, I'll usually grab what guitar I think is best, Telly or Les Paul, and then promptly be told after 1 or 2 takes that it's not working and I need to change it.
Yeah.
So then when we get into the live show, that usually dictates that as well. But yeah, usually, you know, if there's certain songs on, like Bad Love on my album is a heavy rock song, and it was obvious it should be a Les Paul. And you know, some of the bluesy stuff obviously works out better on the telly.
You mentioned when you were tuning as well that that was tuned to standard, and that was unusual. So you normally down a step, are you? Or?
I am usually down to E flat, which I've always done. Again,
this is another Stevie throwback,
Stevie Hendrix. And then as I got older or started gigging more, it's just that little bit extra leeway on the voice,
right.
And tiny girly fingers as well with slightly heavier strings.
I do like this. This is an Albert Collins signature telly, isn't it?
It is.
So, and I think you said that there was a story behind this. So.
There is, and I always get in trouble when I tell it because it makes someone not look very good, so I'll tell it. It was gifted to me by Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, fair enough.
The story behind him...
Well, he's got a boat, so I mean, like, how many more guitars can he need?
That was exactly my argument on the boat when we were arguing about this guitar. I was in New York once with Joe, and it was just after my first album came out, so I was kind of broke. I was a musician, because that's what we are. But I'd always wanted Albert Collins' signature model, and I'd found one. It might have been at Manny's. I think Manny's was still open. And it was about $5,000, and it was signed by Albert.
Wow.
So I went in and had a look at it, and then I went back and saw Joe. And he's like, look, I'll come with you tomorrow. You know, he was already Joe Bonamassa and doing very well. He's like, I can probably haggle a good price. And so he comes back with me, and he haggles it down to, he says, how much money have you got? And I was like, I can probably get about $3,000. He's like, great. Goes in, haggles it down to $3,000 and keeps the guitar for himself.
Right.
So I was like, right. Like, obviously just forgot the part where that's not what we were doing. And then a couple of years later, I was on the boat and I'd had a couple of drinks and happened to mention this story to his dad, Len. And Len got very upset on my behalf and sort of, she's been such a good friend of you, Joseph. And then I got a text going, what's your address? And I got this.
Wow. And
so I don't think it makes him look like a bad person. I think it makes him look like an incredibly generous person because he is.
I must admit, he fascinates me in the sense of, you know, just the way in which he's forged his career.
Yeah.
And I think he has become a role model, not necessarily the right word, but, you know, he's commercially, he's gone, you know, it can be done. You don't need
I mean, he's been very inspiring to me. I mean, he's been such a good friend. And Roy, I should mention, the other side of J&R Adventures, Joe and Roy. Just, from the time I met him in 2008, I think it would have been. And just those struggles I've had of, I can't get this agent, I can't do this, we'll do it yourself, or they won't book me, we'll book you, and just really helped along the way with advice. And they just have the answer, which is always, there is a way to do it yourself, gamble on yourself. So yeah, I mean, they're fantastic, and I think it shows, obviously, the success they've
just
had.
lunatic. I saw him at the Albert Hall about 3 years ago and had amazing seats, second or third row seats.
Oh, nice.
And he's flawless, isn't he? He's just,
And it's really interesting. I mean, I'm very lucky I get to see sound checks and just him noodling. Because I think actually what he plays on stage is really only, 50% of his talent. I saw him at a really interesting gig, just to say this really quickly. It was, I think it was the week Les Paul died.
Right.
And he was invited to Iridium, which was Les Paul's club, and I was in New York. It's a little 300-seater club. And he was playing with Les Paul's band. And it was great, but then there was one point where the second guitar player, Les Paul's guitar player, obviously felt like, okay, we're warmed up now, and threw him a lick, a run that was, kind of trying to raise his game and show him up, basically. And Joe, without missing a heartbeat, just looked angry and shot one back that was far better and just sort of shut him down instantly. And it was like, oh yes, he is capable of pretty much everything. It was, and then the Danny Gatton stuff, all that kind of finger picking.
Yeah, I mean, crazy levels. Anyway, so Tellys and Les Pauls is your thing. You got any good stories about a Les Paul that you own or anything like that?
What's a good story?
I don't know, just like, I don't know, someone that was on a super famous album from the 60s or something, or that, I don't know.
To be honest, I don't own that many Les Pauls. To be honest, the only reason I got one was, it was my third album. Because my dad played Les Pauls. So just as a kid mucking about on them, I just found them ridiculously heavy. I was like a 12-year-old girl. But we drafted in one when I was in Austin. We went to Gibson and got one because we had like a particularly heavy rock track called Tied and Bound and just needed that tone. And they lent me one. It's like a lemon drop with a lovely finish. Tiger stripe kind of thing. A little bit lighter, about 9.2 pounds. So quite bright, like my Tellys. And just fell in love with it. And they fortunately let me find one. I couldn't keep that one. I think it was going to Warren Haynes. But they pretty much found me an identical one over here. So, I mean, that's pretty much that, and I've got a Sunburst Les Paul.
Fair enough.
From them, but...
let's go to the other end of the guitar cable. Is the Twin been your go-to amp from early days? Or?
It was for a long time in the early days. Now, I'm a big Bassman fan.
Right.
So I've just recently acquired a couple of the reissues, which are pretty good for, backups on tour. But I've got a 1963 piggyback. Nice. Bassman. I love tweeds.
Yeah, I mean, we did a shootout video in here about 2 months ago of Bassman, 59 Bassman versus an AC30 versus a Marshall JTM 45. And the Bassman's the loudest one by, it's like twice as loud. It's like whoever invented an amplifier that needed to go this loud. It's just insane.
Some of those Fenders are. My favourite story about Albert Collins was he used to play the quad reverbs.
Right.
And he just used to roll his finger across everything, so it was on 10 and then reverb 4. So it was just the loudest thing you've ever heard. AC30s I love too. I've just found them a little unreliable on the road.
Right.
Once you get, my bus driver rattling things around.
Anything old and tube, to be honest with you, is not ideal, is it? So if you're using a Twin, do you tend to crank them to get the gain from the amplifier and then use something to attenuate it down, or do you...
I'm quite unusual for a guitar player in that I don't like loud things. So actually I usually keep my amps pretty low, 3/4 volume, so just to where they're cracking up a little bit. And then I tend to play just kind of off the pedals, which would be a tube screamer with very low gain, just as a boost, and then a second tube screamer as a clean boost, and pretty much keep it there. Have
you ever gone through that phase of having like a pedal board the size of a small door? Is
No,
it all pretty sort of slimmed down?
I got put off that early by Dave Stewart when I was about 16. We were flying out, I think, to Basel, Switzerland, and he had this thing that I was like, we're at the airport. It was like, it looked like a coffin. It was just massive. It was like a Hammond or something. I was like, what is that? And then I found out it was his pedal board.
Brilliant.
And his guitar tech, I think, was making him carry it around begrudgingly because he didn't want to. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put a tube screw in my backpack. And yeah, I mean, pedals are great and they're great fun, particularly in studio. I tend to take more in there, fuzzies and octave clangs and all that kind of good stuff. But in terms of, I like things pretty simple. It's more stuff to worry about.
I think there's a lot to be said for just get all the tones out of the guitar, tube screamer on the floor, into a nice clean amplifier. I
think so. And then from a performance point of view, I'm saying they're quite northern then. Performance point of view, just worrying about the emotional of the telling of the song and the playing, and not worrying about, oh, hang on, I've got to switch to this now and div around with this.
No, I can imagine. Oh, well, look, that's cool. I enjoyed that little trip down gear lane. Anything gear-wise, anything that you just think, oh, one day it will be mine?
There's a couple of things. 1972 Telecaster Thin Line.
Okay.
That's always been the dream guitar. Really, maple neck, beaten up, that kind of...
Is that another Albert Collins thing, or...?
I don't know where that came from.
Who played the Thin
Johnny
Line?
Lang had one for a while, I think. I also like the lightness of them. I just think they're beautiful looking guitars.
They are.
I love
the natural with the pearly scratch plate. You mean? It's a great looking guitar.
So yeah, there's a few things. I'd like a really nice hollow body Gibson 335 or something like that. So there's definitely some bucket list. At the moment, I am more into amps. Again, I just love the look of Tweed amps. The early, Fender stuff. Vibra Kings as well.
Yeah, Super 400 seems to be the one when Matt Schofield's always talking about. In fact, there's a few guys like that.
I thought he was a two-rock guy. Is he still using those?
I think, and again, internet, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's got this Super 400, which is so old and fragile now that he kind of doesn't take it anywhere.
Yeah,
and I think that the Two Rock is his kind of, that's the brand that you'll always see him touring with and gigging with. But I'm pretty sure, I'm looking for a nod from somewhere to affirm what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure it is like this.
The Two Rock guy's going yes.
Definitely he's a Two Rock guy. I'm pretty sure he's like the Super 400 is the, and there's a few guys that play that kind of scene. Super 400 always seems to be the one, but it's
Dumble. That was probably the holy grail.
You ever played a Dumble?
I had a go recently. We did a show at this place. It's amazing, called Songbirds Museum in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it's a private collector. I think it's like the third biggest collector in the world.
Right.
And it's just a guitar museum. So you walk in and it's just one of every telly ever made and one of every, and then Roy Orbison's guitar. But the dressing room is the private amp room. So there was one in there, which they didn't say I couldn't play it. And it was sitting there. It's just an overdrive special. But it was trying to play it quietly, so they didn't know what I was playing.
I played, we had Robin Ford over, and I played his one, and
nice.
I'm just, no, it's not, I think you've got to be, it's got to be loud, and you've got to be a totally another level player.
I've heard that before also, that you've got to be a certain type of player, like a bit more particular about certain tones.
I think you've got to have, you've got to be that player that's got 110% confidence in every note they're going to play.
I'm not
and
good
definitely for me,
I
not that guy.
Notes,
yeah,
so
and it's like, if you can be that player and you can have the amp loud, I think those are the guys that are going. The Dumble is where.
Well,
it's at.
Joe's been using them for a while, I think. But there's ridiculous waiting time as well, isn't it? Doesn't it take him 2 years to make one or something?
There's so much mystery around Howard Dumble. I'm not even sure if he's still building amps. He must be getting on a bit now. But he's. I don't believe you can just order an amp. I think he has to want to make you an amp. So, and then you send him...
Certainly guitar players.
Yeah, you send him here's the stuff I play, and then he goes, okay, well, this is how I'll tweak the amp for you.
Amazing.
So even buying a second-hand one, I get the general impression it's almost like, well, that would have been built
It's also
for
a really
someone.
good sales pitch. If you play one and go, oh, I'm actually not that bothered about it. It's like, well, it wasn't made for you. It was made specifically for this one
And it's
person.
tens of thousands of pounds, if not hundreds of thousands. Anyway. We digress.
Gear.
Anyway, I think that rounds us off nicely. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been good fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you came down, and good luck in 2020 and beyond.
Thank you very much.
And if you've not listened to any of Joanne's music, go and do it. I was listening to Reckless Heart this morning, and it's a grooving, good sort of rock guitar blues album. So yeah, there you go. Details in the description below. Thank you ever so much for coming in.
Thank you very much, my dear.
Take it easy,
me.
and we shall see you in another video soon. Bye-bye.